This is the Pet Buzz.
This is the Pet Buzz.
And here's the dynamic pet duo.
So, Dr. Bray, welcome to the Pet Buzz.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'm so glad you're here because I said in the introduction that a friend of mine went to go look at some puppies. And it was so amazing how they were so interested in us and how they wanted to come to us and snuggle with us. So we were really excited. So do you think that puppies are born to interact with humans?
So yes, it appears that thousands of years of selection have led to puppies who are extremely skilled at reading our social cues. And as many pet owners can probably verify, it really does seem that dogs arrive biologically prepared for communication with humans.
Great. So you recently finished a study about this topic. Tell us about it, but really, I'm kind of curious, what prompted the study?
Sure. So over the past 20 years, one of the most robust findings in the canine science world has been that adult dogs show skill when it comes to following communicative gestures and making eye contact with humans. And in fact, they're more skilled at following a human pointing gesture than non-human apes, despite being much more distantly related to us. And so there are also many studies documenting their tendency to initiate eye contact and the positive effects that that induces in both the humans and the dogs. So for example, we know that mutual gaze increases oxytocin level in both species. So this all begs the question of why. So is the acquisition of these skills solely dependent upon learning and the experiences that the dogs accrue over their lives, given that they grow up in our homes? Or is there more to the story? So could it be that over the course of domestication, these sorts of skills have been selected for and dogs are now set up to be receptive to our communication from shortly after birth?
Let's talk about your research protocols. So I'm sure you were surrounded by tons of puppies. What did they do? What kind of tasks did they complete?
Sure. So we worked with 375 puppies from Canine Companions, which is a service dog organization. And they participated in 4 different tasks of social cognition. So 2 that measured their ability to follow a communicative cue, and 2 that measured their propensity to make eye contact with a human. So for example, in our pointing task, there were always 2 cups and food was hidden under one of them without the puppy seeing where. And then the experimenter called the puppy's name, made eye contact, and pointed to the correct location. And in this scenario, puppies chose the correct location significantly above what we would expect by mere chance. And then to look at the puppy's tendency to make eye contact, one task that we used was called a human interest task. And here the experimenter looked at the puppy and talked to them in a high-pitched voice that closely mimicked how people talk to babies. And we measured how long the puppies returned eye contact with the experimenter and found they did so for about 1/5 of the overall trial time.
Interesting. Did you find anything out that was really surprising that you didn't think about doing this study with the puppies?
Yeah, so I think there were 2 main takeaways that we didn't know prior to the study. So first, we learned something important about the developmental basis of these skills. So it turns out that even before puppies have left their litter mates to live one-on-one with their human raiser, most of them are able to interpret these human cues within a social context and reciprocate eye contact. And importantly, we found that the puppies understand from the very first trial. And so it seems like they really are starting the task with the communicative ability necessary to be successful. And second, we know that group-wide, most dogs possess these skills as puppies, but we see individual differences. So while many puppies sort of breeze through, others just cannot figure it out. And what's really fascinating is that a lot of this variation can be explained by the genetics of the dogs. So specifically, 43% of the variation that we saw in point following ability and gazing behavior was due to genetic factors. And that's actually quite high numbers, on par with estimates of the heritability of intelligence in our own species.
Now, did you use a specific breeds of puppies or a variety of puppies?
So we use Labrador retrievers, golden retrievers, and mixes between labs and goldens because those are the dogs that the service dog organization breeds and raises.
Do you think that puppies showed the same willingness to communicate like babies? I'm always interested in that. The animal-human bond, obviously, but if we see similarities in the canines versus the humans, or what correlation behavior do we see?
Right. So I think behaviorally, what we see in puppies in terms of non-linguistic communication, obviously, is functionally comparable to what we see in young human children. So how puppies are solving these social problems certainly looks human-like, but I would say the jury is still out as to whether the underlying mechanisms driving these behaviors are the same. And so research into that question is ongoing.
We do a lot of studies on the show, and I always want to know, and our listeners want to know, so what can they take away? What information can they take away from your research? I mean, will your information help them look, when they're looking for adopting or buying a puppy?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, I think that dogs' communicative skills uniquely position them to fill the role that they have alongside humans. So many of the tasks that they perform for us now and in the past, whether that's herding, hunting, detecting, acting as service dogs, they're facilitated by their ability to effectively use our cues. And with pet dogs specifically, these abilities help to foster attachment and strengthen the human-animal bond. So I think a takeaway from this study is that probably ancient dogs who displayed these skills were likely at a selective advantage. Interestingly, we actually followed 160 of the puppies from our study into adulthood and retested them. And what we found is that when it came to reciprocating gaze, for example, performance at an early age was predictive of how that same individual went on to perform as an adult. So in other words, puppies who were very socially attentive grew into dogs that were very socially attentive, and vice versa. So if that's a trait that you're interested in for your future pet, it's something that you can look for from very early on.
Dr. Bray, thank you so much for joining us. It was great information. And I think when people are out there, and we know so many people have adopted or bought puppies recently, and they continue to do so because they see how puppies are our best friends, our family members, and also, I would say, life jackets too, especially since we've had this ongoing pandemic problem.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Pet Buzz.